any of you who've been following these pep talks on my blog for the last 2 weeks knows about the crisis in my neighborhood in Nachlaot. And it's a crisis that I'm experiencing very, 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 very heavily. It's sort of a crisis that I'm sort of living 24 hours, not 24 hours, but I'm doing this sort of full time, this crisis. So I've taken over my life. So just to update you who don't, any of you who don't know, I discovered about 3 weeks ago that my little street, it's like an alleyway. It's a street it's sort of an enclosed street that there's not even any cars on it. This beautiful, idyllic, historic Nachlaot street, for the last several years has been the site of the largest case of sexual abuse of children in the history of Israel. It's like the biggest pedophile case in the history of Israel. And at present, well over 100 children are receiving treatment to help them recover from the trauma of ongoing abuse and rape and molestation by some very, very evil people. So I want to just tell you, for any of you who are my neighbors, who are going through this crisis with me, or for any of you who are going through a difficult time, I want to tell you basically what I've been thinking about and some things that have been helping me to get through this crisis. So the first thing I want to tell you is that the main thing that is helping me to get through this. What's been for me a very, very difficult Nisayon, going from, a few weeks ago, a month ago, I thought I lived in the safest, most idyllic kind of Garden of Eden kind of place, a place that I always felt safe and warm and wonderful. Going from that to finding out that in fact the past several years I have been living on what is probably the most dangerous street in Jerusalem to raise a child. Probably outside of maybe the Muslim Quarter. Maybe the Muslim Quarter could compete with my street. But it's been a very, very jarring and a profoundly upsetting experience. I know many, many mothers whose children were victims in this terrible story. And it's really horrific. So I just wanted to tell you how I am surviving. So the first thing is that my friend Efrat recommended this book to me. It's called The Garden of Gratitude by Rabbi Shalom Arush. And I am now reading this for a second time. That's very rare for me because I'm an extremely, extremely slow reader. And this book is my lifesaver. It is just keeping me going. And when I start feeling, getting sucked down again into a feeling of, this negative feeling of hopelessness and down and fear and whatever, I pick this book and it just picks me right up. It just helps me. So basically this book just keeps me saying to myself, everything is from Hashem, and everything is for my benefit. Everything is from Hashem and everything is for my benefit. Just sort of focusing, trying to keep Hashem in this whole story. And when I feel myself again getting sucked down, what I do is I force myself to make a list of 10 things. Basically, what Rabbi Arush teaches, he says if you want to see miracles, if you're in a difficult situation and you want Hashem to show you miracles, you want Hashem to make some sort of positive outcome from an extremely difficult situation, then what you need to do is you need to be thanking Hashem, finding ways to thank Hashem for the situation that you're in. And it sounds nutty, but it's incredibly powerful experience to be going through. It's extremely comforting as well, and I think it works. I believe it. And then I've personally seen miracles, and I'm hoping that we in Nachlaot that we're going to see big miracles here also. So what I do, I feel myself starting to get pulled down. I read a few pages of my book, of my Garden of Gratitude, and I force myself to count 10 reasons why I'm grateful for the current situation I'm in. Okay, I'm grateful. For example, I'm grateful that now now we know what's good. We know what went on. We know what was going on for so many years. So the kids are able to get treatment. We know what the situation is, so that we're able to be more careful with our children. I'm thankful that this whole situation, that it happened in Elul, so I was able to have the most God-centered Elul, the most intense God-centered Elul in my life. I hope I will never ever be blessed with an owl this intense. So I want to tell you about my Rosh Hashana. Anyone who's been watching these pep talks for a while knows that my favorite shul in the whole world is the Belzer shul. It's the Belzer shul in Kiryat Belz, Jerusalem, and it's the largest synagogue in the whole world. They have 6,000 seats there. And for me, like going to the Belzer synagogue on Rosh Hashana and just being surrounded by these powerhouse Belzer Hasidic women, it's just just seeing them with they look so majestic, and like I know them like they're missing with nefesh for Torah and for a Jewish way of life and for Hashem and for it's just to be with them is enough to keep me going for a year. To be there with 2,500 of these Belzer Jewish moms. They're amazing. So this Rosh Hashanah, so I was there for the shofar blowing, and it was a very painful shofar blowing for me, because what I was imagining during the shofar blowing is I was imagining who was crying out for help. I was imagining like these children, and none of us knew, and none of us parents knew that, that on my block, that there were children crying out for help, and children being abused terribly, and with real cruelty. And none of us knew. And that was the shofar. I just imagine all these children crying out for help. And still crying out for help. Children still who went through this nightmare, still in need of help. And I was just broken. I was just so upset. I was just sobbing during the shofar blowing, thinking of that. So after the shofar blowing, then there was a break. In the Belzer shul, they have like long breaks. And during the davening, so there's this one lady at the Belzer shul. She's an elderly woman named Mrs. Shoebox. And she's always gone out of her way to be so nice to me. Whenever I go, and I go almost every Shabbat, so she always comes up to me, and she always shakes my hand, and she always wants to know how I'm doing, and real positive energy kind of lady. So I saw her during the break, and I went up to her and I shook her hand. And she gave me a blessing, and she said, I want to wish you with the Shana Tova, that everything should be good, and that you should be blessed this year with only good things, that Hashem should answer your prayers. And I just said to her, I just felt so broken, from everything in the neighborhood, and from that difficult shofar blowing. And I said, Mrs. Shoebox, thank you so much. I said, I just want to tell you, you have no idea what's going on in my neighborhood. You have no idea, what a crisis is happening, and just terrible things are happening there. And I didn't tell her, I didn't give her the details of what I was talking about. So her face, usually she has this she's smiling, she always has this real glowing smile. I saw her face get very serious for a moment, and then her smile came back. She said, I want to bless you, that that you should see Yeshuot this year, that that Hashem should show us real miracles this year, and that Hashem should help you, and Hashem should help your neighborhood, and that Hashem should answer all of our prayers, and that the true Geula should come this year. And there's something about that really got to me. Something about being with this elderly woman. And when I was leaving, I found myself crying again. But it wasn't like the broken crying of when I was crying during the shofar blowing. It was this crying, these tears of relief. Because I realized I was thinking about Mrs. Shoebox, and she's like an elderly woman. I was just thinking of what she's seen. That when the Belzer Rebbe, when he came from Europe, then he did not even have a minyan of Hasidim in Jerusalem. There was not even a minyan of Belzer Hasidim in Jerusalem. Okay? And now today it was like the Belzer Hasidus was completely decimated by the Holocaust and by Hitler Yimach Shemo. And now there are tens of thousands of them. And not only that, they are mighty, they are majestic, they are just an amazing, powerful group of Hasidim. And this amazing force of Kedusha in the world, of holiness in the world, and fighting for Torah and for Hashem, and just bringing the light of Torah and Hashem and Kedusha to the world. And I'm just thinking, when I was walking, and I was just thinking, everything, I was just thinking what Mrs. Shoebox has seen in her lifetime, you know, what it must have been like. I think that probably she was a child during the Holocaust, you know. She heard about the, you know, about the murder of, you know, millions of Jews and certain people in her family, and, you know, and then and like I'm sure she's lived through all of the Israeli wars and how many terror attacks, and I'm sure that in her own personal life then that she's been through terrible dark times, you know, and but just that she has seen that the force of Kedusha, the force of holiness, and the force of Torah, and the force of Hashem in the world, it's so much stronger. It's so much stronger than the force of evil. You know, like with this whole story in my neighborhood, I tend to think of it like I think of like of these, you know, of these people who abuse children. You know, these very, very cruel, terrible, terrible, evil people. And I think of them, I think it's like this force, like this black, and then I think of, you know, the good deeds that people do. Like I think it's like sort of like, let's say there's like a lightning bug, flying into a black hole. Like that's basically how effective it is. It's just like I just feel like we're surrounded by so much evil. But being there with Mrs. Shuvaks and the Belzer Shul, I just feel like I understood that I had it all wrong. That really what it is. It's like the force of goodness in the world, like the force of holiness and Torah and Hashem in the world. It's like a sun, okay? And these evil people, like Hitler, and people who do terrible things to children, and, you know, terrorists, and all the evil, the forces of evil in the world. It's like mosquitoes flying into the sun. Okay, it's like a mosquito just flying into the sun. Like they just can't compete. They can't compete. And I was just on the way home. I was thinking of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. See the Lubavitcher Rebbe who came to America, and he became the Rebbe, you know, right after the Shoah. And again, like millions of people, millions of Jews, like basically almost all of like, you know, Torah observant Jews were murdered there. They were murdered by Hitler Yamach Shemo. And they, you know, and basically, you know, basically European Jewry is basically gone, like flattened. And there he moved to America, where like basically people are like making a mad dash to assimilate. Like basically almost all of American Jewry was just trying to like leave, you know, holiness and Judaism behind, like as fast as they possibly can, to assimilate, intermarry, and whatever. But the Rebbe knew. He knew that the force of goodness and the force of holiness and the force of Torah in the world, the force of Hashem in the world, it's like the sun, right? And this evil, like the evil Hitler and the Nazis and the Ukrainians and the Polish and whatever, the people who murdered the Jews, and, you know, and the forces like pushing Jews towards assimilation in America. He knows that they're like mosquitoes flying into the sun. You know, he understood that we are so much bigger than that. We are so much bigger. You know, the force of goodness and the force of holiness and the force of Torah and the force of Hashem in the world, we are so much bigger than this. We are so much bigger than the forces of evil. You know, this morning I walked by my neighbor, who unfortunately her children were victims in this whole story in the neighborhood. They were victims of these evil pedophiles in my neighborhood. And I saw her, and she, you know, Rosh Hashana basically was 2 days ago, Sunday today, and her sukkah's already up. She's got a big sukkah. She's got a big family, Bli and Hara. And I said, "Hi." I said, "You already built your sukkah?" And she said, "Yeah, that's our tradition. We always build right after Rosh Hashana." And she said it does me so good. She says it makes me feel so happy. It makes me feel so happy to see this sukkah. You know, and I was just thinking, like, we are so much stronger than this. We are so much stronger than this. Like the force of good and the mitzvot and the holiness and the Shem and Judaism. We've been through so much. Like we went through like the Crusades and the pogroms and the Inquisitions and the, you know, the Holocaust and the wars and the terror attacks, and now this. You know, and we are so much stronger than this. We are so much stronger than this, you know, because we have the force of Kedusha and the force of holiness and the force of Torah and the force of Hashem in the world. We are so much stronger than this. So I want to bless all of us Jewish moms, that we should bless for such an amazing year, such a sweet year.